Good morning, everyone. Happy March. March number 1. What a great day. If I can make it through to March, I figure I can make it through winter. Only 26 more days and it's my birthday. So here we are. And when I say the chapter number, don't get all upset because the chapters are right at this point all afloat. But we're going to call today, for today's sake, chapter 25. Here we go. At the very least, your days of eating Pacific Ocean fish are over, with updates. Opinion by Gary Stamper. Reuters. Crisis deepening at Uniscopic nuclear power plant. Upgraded to level 3 serious incident. Represented a hundredfold increase in severity of radiological release. TEPCO says highly radioactive leakage continues, but unknown where from? It's more than obvious that TEPCO officials have no idea what they're doing. And the big question is, why aren't world governments jumping in to contain what's going on? Meanwhile, the Pacific Ocean may well be dying. End of article. Zona studied the label on the mackerel can. This was a canned fish her grandmother cooked for supper when she was young. No, it couldn't be. This stuff was caught in Thailand, at least packaged there. But yet she wondered wistfully, will this be the last mackerel I ever eat? The Pacific feeds how many? We all drink from the same cup, and how many will die who depend on that water for survival? Have they forgotten it's a food chain? Every link counts, all connected. The other day she was shopping for grapefruit, and her favorite fruit were ruined when she noticed they came from South Africa. The carbon footprint of 5 minutes of delight. Then, even worse, it was undoubtedly sprayed with some nasty chemicals. The meat, she discovered, was produced under inhumane conditions. She couldn't shake that footage of the giant sow held down by a metal bar while the multitude sucked her. Zona saw the Mother Earth as a great sow and humanity holding her down while they raped and pillaged her. It turned her stomach to feel the earth's helplessness. She lays bruised and bleeding, ravaged by the winds and rains, quaking, storming, overflowing with pain. Can't you hear her calling? We all drink from the same cup. If we are to survive, it must be in unity. There's only one lifeboat, and we are all in it. We must work together to provide the first aid she needs. She studied a piece about the heavy water from the damaged nuclear reactor leaking into the ocean since the Uniscopic quake. Every time she got to thinking about the potential for a world economic meltdown, she switched between faith and suicidal thoughts. She'd read enough stories about countries during Civil War to know the law could kick your door in any time of the day or night, take you, kill you, or both, and your loved ones would never hear from you or be able to even know where your body was. No safe water, cholera, dysentery everywhere, no hospitals, nursing homes. The only system of justice was dictated by the best armed gang. If this was the future, she was definitely going to check up by her own device. That was why she was cruising the suicide planning sites. She wanted to keep the good old fashioned faith, but despite her best efforts to escape the mainstream news, it was waved in her face like a red flag by the internet. Facebook users were constantly feeding news articles on current events and tense situations into her status update. She mourned for the Mother Earth. As a child, she traveled to Minto to get loads of coal. All through the Burger Game Refuge. On the way there, the creatures were protected. Refuge, or so she thought. But recently, she learned a poisonous pond lay in those woods. There was a gray sadness emanating from the earth from the rocky road on. When she lived there as an adult, she grieved the loss of the actual game refuge that had been ravaged by pulp and paper companies. A thin cosmetic buffer of trees between the naked clear cuts and the road saddened her. The feel of the town itself was tired, empty, and desperate, a zombie of its former 60s bloom. Chapter 26. Mara got a good grasp on the waistband of her polyester slacks and pulled up and swished her bottom around to arrange the fabric comfortably on her obese body. Then she tugged down the bottom of her sweater, then checked her hair in the mirror in the bathroom of this morning's client. She combed the cheap haircut and wished she'd spent the extra. So she breathed a sigh of relief. At last, her charge had fallen asleep. She felt sad for the poor guy. He had absolutely no life at all outside the walls of his apartment. Most of the time, he vibrated and drooled. No one had ever touched him like everybody needs touch. She studied her schedule. This was a list of 8 people of different ages and conditions that had one thing in common. In the case of emergency, they were 100% dependent on another person or people to physically rescue them. Lately, the world had seen storms and floods out of nowhere. A few years ago, it was discovered in New York during the big storm that there were many who were dependent on the able to bring fresh water and first aid to the sick and injured. She'd asked at the community hall meeting if someone made a list of folks who would be stranded in a catastrophe. They just mumbled something about not having the resources to make that possible. That was when she knew she had to come up with a plan to keep these people from lingering in their suffering. If a situation developed like she'd been seeing the news plastered with. Her code name on the suicide site was All Mother Hubbard. She purchased a party pack suicide kit. She'd even had the sense of humor to pick up some party hats to place on the clients' heads before they drank the final happy cocktail. Some might say when she was dead, how cruel she was, but they couldn't picture these 4 dependent creatures lying starving and sick in weeks of their own urine and feces the way she saw it. Her way was totally humane. She had taken pictures of each of them and wrote out the details of their life and who would ever come to visit or given any attention. Oftentimes, the workers who fed and bathed and tucked them in bed were their only companion or facsimile of a friend or family connection. They were the only ones who knew the clothing sizes of the favorite flavor of pudding, or favorite movie of many of the clients who had spent their life in public care. Chapter 27. Carrie turned on the radio in the kitchen. The music ended, and then she heard, "A local woman has been extradited to the U.S. on charges of terrorism. Sources report that she's connected to a cell out of the Middle East. MJ Hope has pleaded not guilty and has elected trial by judge and jury. Reports from U.S. Canada customs officials indicate that her wife, Carrie Hope, attempted to enter the U.S. but was red flagged by the no-fly list. And the local Wildcats have blown the playoffs with a score of 27 against the Wolverines, 48 goals." Carrie snapped the button of the foul news off. She scratched her left butt cheek. She could feel the eczemas break out and scab being ripped up from her nails. Soon she'd bleed from the digging. She switched to scratching her scalp with both hands. Maybe a soda bath was what she needed. She could feel a patch on the middle of her back, screaming to be raped too. Then she felt her eyes sting with unexpected tears, and then she began to choke on postnasal drip. She cleared her throat. Had she taken her allergy pill? What in hell was in the air that she was allergic to? Sometimes she wondered if the PND was connected with her emotions. It would happen in a place that didn't trigger her earlier. She just finished a large glass of milk. Perhaps it was a dairy. She turned on the tub and undressed. She went back to the radio and switched the function to CD player and turned on her favorite Burrow disc, adjusting the volume so she could hear it from the tub. She lit 4 candles and turned off the overhead before she stepped into the warm water, made silky by the addition of baking soda. She had no sooner laid back and relaxed her head against the luxurious depth of the cloth-hooded tub than the phone rang. She decided to let the machine get the message. She would check it when she got out. For now, she was going to relax. Well, as much as she was able to in this situation. She closed her eyes and focused on the hot water and music. See you tomorrow, hopefully. Bye-bye.